was inspired to do this episode because I'm watching young people that I know coming into the world, and they're facing the same thing we all faced years ago of how do you earn a living and be an artist? Because when you first get out in the world, you're very optimistic. You think, oh, somebody will just give me millions of dollars to make my movies. Or maybe you're an actor and you just think, oh, I'll do a few auditions, I'll get some jobs, I'll be on my way. And the reality is that's not really how it works. And no one seems to prepare anyone for that. It's sort of this world of you should either be an instant success or you should just quit. And from my perspective, neither of those are the right options. What's your plan B? This is probably the worst question you can ask someone starting out in the arts. I know it's asked with kindness. I know it's asked with concern for children or friends and how they're going to earn a living, how they're going to survive, but it's a very negative question. So I want to talk to you today about that question, why it's not a good question, what a better question might be, and also I want to speak to you as actors and filmmakers about how you might want to approach earning a living. So let's start at the beginning. Why is this a terrible question? Well, what's your plan B? Basically insinuates that the person's going to fail. Well, I know you're not really talented, it feels like. Well, you might be talented, but I just don't think you're going to make it, so that's how it feels. It's just the honest truth. A better question to ask is, what's your plan A? How do you plan to be an artist and to also eat? Because this whole notion, I do want to take a step back here, of it's noble to be a starving artist. There's nothing noble in that. I had a few years of my life when I first started out in New York City. I grew up in the Bronx. I moved to Manhattan out of my parents' place, a whole 10 miles away. But I did have to pay my bills, and I had a couple of years where I earned about $19,000 a year. Now, in New York City, earning $19,000 a year is like earning $9,000 pretty much anywhere else in the United States, with the exception of other large cities. It was not fun. Deciding whether or not to eat lunch so you could afford Chinese food that night, that's not a way to live. There is a happy medium in there of not moving to a plan B and giving up on your dreams and your art, but also not eating rice for lunch. A good plan A starts out with, what is your prize? What is the main thing you want to do? Because you have to keep your eye on the prize. If you lose sight of that for any long period of time, you are just in a terrible situation and you will be unhappy. Now, sometimes it takes people a few years to figure that out, right? They come out of high school or college, or they retire and they think, now I'm going to go into the arts. I always wanted to do this. That's great. But there's so many options out there, especially now. So maybe you need a little bit of time to try some things out. And if you happen to be in a situation where you are retired and you have money to support you, or you can still live in your family's home for a little while and it's not totally destroying your life, you might want to take a few years to figure out, what do I really want to do? Like, for example, when I got out of college, I thought, I'm going to do Chekhov, but I'm going to do it living theater style, which is great. Like the Worcester group, they're amazing. But I ended up realizing I didn't really want to do that. I liked the idea of that. And it took me a while to find filmmaking. I didn't start out making films until I was out of school for a few years. And then I knew, this is it. This is what I want to do. Yes, it's true. I did not go to school for filmmaking, and we'll talk about education another time, the pros and cons of getting certain degrees, etc., how you can learn outside of school. But let's just stay focused on our plan A. So you figure out, what is your prize? So my prize is I want to make films. Now, what do I need in order to make films? Well, I need screenwriting software. I need other creative software to edit. I need money to make my films. I need time to write. I need time to actually be on set. I need time prior to that for pre-production. So it's a huge list. It's a little daunting, but you just do it a little bit at a time and you figure out what will be the things you need to do, whether it's a short film, feature film. If you're an actor, you need equipment for self-recording. You need to have a space that's set up for that, so it's not stressful every time you have to do an audition that you got to reconfigure your whole space. And you need any software that goes along with that. So you figure out all those things. You may not be able to afford them all right away. You might be, depends on your situation. Good for you if you can. If you can't, you'll get there. And then you figure out, okay, now, while I'm auditioning, while I'm writing my scripts, while I'm getting ready to do projects, how am I going to pay my bills? So you figure out what skills you have. So as a filmmaker, you have a lot of skills. You might have editing skills. You might have DP skills where you know how to use camera and shoot and all that. You might be a good lighting expert, a gaffer. You might have a host of things that you can do. You figure out what your skills are and how you can take them for other work. And there's different ways you can do it. You know, some people like to freelance. They don't want to be in an office. They don't want to be tied down. I'm going to talk about that in a second. It's really not as bad as you think. But it may not be for you. You know, some people try that out and they're like, oh my God, I can't sit in a production office all day or a corporate office all day, which is kind of the same thing. And so it doesn't work out for them and they want to freelance. The good thing about freelancing is that you make your own schedule, you work when you want, and when you can obviously get work, though, you do have to constantly be hustling to get that work. But once you're in and you have a few connections, you can build a business. You're really building your own private small business. Some people love to do that. Some people like to position themselves in jobs in the industry. So when I started out, I thought, well, I love to edit. Everybody knows me. I'm a puzzle doer. So I love to edit. And I got a job at an editing house. And it wasn't the greatest editing house. Like, the situation there was not brilliant. But what I found was I loved the job, but it was a 14 to 16 hour day of editing. And by the end of the day, my hands were hurting from being on the computer. My eyes were tired. And the last thing I wanted to do was get in front of a computer again to write my own work, to edit my own work. I mean, it was just taking me out of that. And my eye on the prize, well, the prize was getting further and further into the distance, far away, where I couldn't even see it anymore. So that didn't work out for me. It really depends on what you want and how your own brain works. It's not the same for everyone. But for me, I thought, well, I have to make a choice now. Do I want to be an editor? In which case, I was on a path to doing that. I was editing for broadcast. I was going that way. Or was my prize really making my own films? And I decided it was the latter, making my films. That's what mattered to me the most. And this job wasn't cutting it. Does that mean I don't edit for people? No, I do. But I freelance as a side business. So I pick up editing jobs. I do them on the weekends. I do them at night. Sometimes they're very well paying. Sometimes they're not, because there are other artists like me. So I give them the friends and family rate because I want to be working on their projects and they understand that they're going to need to be patient with my schedule. So it's a win-win. I do all those things. I haven't given up editing. It's just not my main way to work. And when I say editing isn't my main way to work, I mean in the industry. I work in corporate America. I found a job and a profession that uses my editing skills, my writing skills, gives me access to creative software not to use for my own stuff. I have my own separate equipment. It's very important that you keep it separate, just to be clear. But I do learn about new software. I get training on new creative software all the time at my job because, of course, the corporation wants me to have the best skills I can. They want me to work as efficiently as possible for them. And I'm gaining knowledge for other things I want to do in my life. It's a win-win. You'd be amazed at where your skills can come into play in other jobs. But again, you have to keep your eye on the prize. I had a friend years ago who was working as a temp, and he said to me one day, well, I got this job writing. It's a travel writing job, and I'm really excited about it, and I want to do it, but I don't know if I can take that much time off from this temp job. I don't know if it'll be here when I get back. So I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't do it. And I remember looking at him, and he talks about this all the time, and I said, why are you doing this job? Oh, so I can be a writer. So you were just offered a writing job. Uh-huh. And you're worried about keeping this job. What's your prize? Like, what is it that you want to be doing? And he said, oh, yeah. Yeah. You can't be worried about losing the corporate job. I've had to walk out of corporate jobs sometimes. Sometimes they don't get it, that it makes sense to let you come back a few weeks later. So you quit. You're not locked in for life. Nothing is for life unless you make it that way. Nothing. So you just leave. You leave and you do that job. And if it's not there for you when you get back, it's not there. You will find another one. You will be okay. It's good to have a little bit of savings so you know you'll be okay if you can manage it. In the beginning, you will not be able to do all of these things that I'm talking about. These are all things to move towards. Please don't be overwhelmed or feel like you're failing because you don't have a few $1,000s in the bank, and I just mean a few months worth of money. You'll get there. If you're an actor, you may be sitting there right now going, that's great. Filmmakers have all these skills. What do I got? You've got a lot. You have presentation skills. You're not afraid to get up in front of people and talk. You're probably good at improvising. All of these things are skills that are worthwhile in many, many jobs that you can do while you're pursuing your art. Again, eye on the prize. I have one friend who's an actor who does this crazy job. I really wish I could be like a fly on the wall in the room. He is a subject for medical students. Well, what does that mean? He goes in, I think they give him a disease and symptoms, and the doctors have to figure out what he has. He goes in and he tells them how he's feeling and what's going on, and they have to figure it out. But he also has to get them to ask the right questions, because often patients don't just volunteer everything. And I'm sure it can be hilarious. I'm sure he's improvising all the time. I'm sure there's just fun times happening, and he is constantly honing his skills by doing that job. So when he goes on an audition and somebody asks him to improvise, or he decides to throw in an extra line, he catches somebody's attention because he can think on his feet. That's great. That's an amazing skill to have as an actor. There are also actors who work in real estate because they are good at presenting. They're not afraid to talk to people and walk people around and look them in the eye. And they can make their own schedule somewhat with real estate. I know it's a hustle, but they can make a schedule so if they need to self-record and get something out, they can. Some actors have skills on the other side. They are good at producing. They're organized. Maybe they're great at finance. Who knows? They can run budgets. Who knows what your skills are? You're an individual. You are the only one, actually. Who knows? So write them down and figure it out. There's also career people out there. I'm going to bring a career coach on eventually. I'm also going to bring a producer on and other people on, finance people to talk as experts about these subjects, not to sell you. I won't let them sell you. I'm an editor. I'll just edit all that out. But they will come on and give you some tips and ways to approach things. And there are very affordable ways to figure that stuff out and not get hustled for thousands of dollars from people who are offering you advice. Please don't do that. We'll go along the way together, and I'll show you more. But remember this, if nothing else from this video, you don't need a plan B. You just need a really good plan A. I'll see you next time.